The separate proposals have little chance of passing in a divided government. But states have enacted several voting laws in the aftermath of the 2020 election.
Asian Americans have come forward saying they feel disenfranchised by the changes. Fox 5's Rob DiRienzo tells us they consider changes here in Georgia a form of voter suppression.
Well, advocates for Georgia's Asian American communities say the changes in the state's voting rules have made it more confusing and challenging for voters, especially for those who don't speak English as a first language. Meanwhile, Governor Brian Kemp's team fired back, pointing to record voter turnout among Asian American voters this past cycle.
We want nothing more than for every eligible voter to have access to the polls.
That's why Meredith Yoon says the organization Asian Americans Advancing Justice sued Georgia's Secretary of State over changes made to the election laws. She says some voters are now fearful at the polls of helping their family members with limited English proficiency for fear of breaking the law.
A lot of questions arise as to how these laws impact what we can and can't do. And so it's pretty tough, especially when some of these restrictions are vague.
Meanwhile, Governor Brian Kemp's press secretary says since he signed SB 202, quote, Georgia has not only become one of the top states in the country for early voting, but has also experienced record voter turnout in multiple elections. But Yoon argued that's a product of voter outreach in spite of the law, not because of it.
I mean, we've been working our butts off. Organizations like ours, are knocking on doors, are doing all kinds of things to ensure that voters know about the changes that SB 202 caused.
Yoon pointed us to less apparent ways she thinks AAPI voters in Georgia are being silenced, like with rejected absentee ballots.
More than a threefold increase in the rate of rejection for AAPI voters' ballots applications being returned, too late.
And here in Georgia, attempts from other groups to get a judge to toss out the ban on giving snacks and water to voters in line on Election Day have so far been unsuccessful. Meanwhile, other groups have filed lawsuits to reverse similar laws in other Republican-controlled states like Florida and Texas. Of course, this is going to be an issue we're going to be following very closely in the weeks and months to come. In Atlanta, Rob DiRienzo, Fox 5 News.